Well, Dan Lanning did not leave his heart in Oregon. He's keeping it in Oregon. He turns down Bama and is Oregon's head coach. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day post Dan Lanning announcement, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So first, a shout out because we've hit 5,000 subs on YouTube. Appreciate you very, very much. Almost as much as I appreciate Dan Lanning not going to Alabama. The interest here was very real. I have that on good authority that Alabama, and it was widely reported that Lanning was going to be among or perhaps the top target for the Crimson Tide. And it is a testament to what Dan Lanning has the ability to build with the Ducks, how he has been treated, that he essentially turned them down. There was I can't confirm personally, but it's a pretty solid, educated guess that there was an offer or a phone call made and Dan Lanning said, nope, I'm good. I like where I'm at. That is a major feather in Oregon's cap. And I think just a big emotional win for Duck fans who have been burned by this in the past. Willie Taggart, recruiting was taken off and everything was feeling like it was bad. And then he goes to Florida State. Well, Cristobal's the guy, here he is, and he gives Oregon 4 good years and builds the program back up. But then he leaves for Miami. And if Dan Lanning had left, there would have been a lot of frustrated fans. There would have been a lot of frustrated fans annoyed that, oh my gosh, we have to go through a coaching search again. Why do we have to keep doing this? Is Oregon just a stepping stone program and everything like that? And Lanning released just a banger of a video in which it was part of team meetings. And either they had that thing preloaded or they put it together very, very quickly, because there was a 1 minute cinematic recap of videos and whatnot and words coming on the screen and everything. And Lanning saying, if you're worried about your coach leaving, come play for Oregon because we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And that's about as emphatic of a yes, I am here to be Oregon's head coach and not build myself up for another job as you can get. I long felt and talked about on the show that I dropped last night that some of you may have heard earlier today. Lots of Locked On Ducks content right now. It happens when your coach is rumored to be taking another position. But I talked about how when Lanning first got hired at Oregon, there were only 2, maybe 3 jobs I felt that he would leave for, that he would leave Oregon for and say, I'm going to go over here because I feel like this is a better opportunity, because Oregon is one of the 10 best jobs in all of college football. I felt that he would go to Alabama. I felt he would go to Georgia. I felt he would go to LSU. There's a difference between would and will because there are a lot of factors at play. His wife might not have wanted to move because that's something Lanning talked about routinely. He talked about it in emphatic fashion when addressing the Texas A&M rumors. He's like, I'm tired of moving. We're here. We want to have our kids in school and everything like that. That's a factor. That's absolutely a factor. And I think that's a testament to the community that they're now raising their kids in. Because if they didn't like it or they felt there was, something as good or better elsewhere, they might have made that decision. But shout out to everyone that has made Dan Lanning feel at home and welcome and supported as the Oregon head football coach, and has welcomed his family into the community as well. Because if they didn't like it, I think they would have left. It's Alabama. It is the biggest, most important coaching job in all of college football. And Lanning decided, nope, I want to stay with Oregon instead. And I think that is just a fantastic feeling. There's definitely a sigh of relief amongst Oregon fans after Lanning was the betting favorite. And there were all these rumors, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. But I think that Lanning turning down the Alabama job is a testament to the fact that he'll stay at Oregon as long as we'll have him, because Kirby Smart is not leaving Georgia anytime soon. That would still be the next job. And you know what? when the Alabama job comes open again, I don't know who they're going to hire, how long he'll be there. Lanning's name is going to get tied to those particular jobs. But Kirby's not going anywhere for a while. Alabama's about to hire somebody, and if he goes and has a bunch of success, well, then Dan Lanning's not going to be as hot of a coaching commodity, because the Texas A&M rumors never got that far. The Auburn rumors never got, I don't think, as far as the Alabama possibility did. And Lanning has now seen 3 SEC jobs come open, and he said, nope, I want to be at Oregon. And that is an awesome, awesome feeling for Duck fans. I think we collectively all really liked this guy already. I think that got ticked up by a couple of notches when he released that video and just so emphatically and decisively said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. And it was, 2024 team meetings, and it was, clips from this season, it was the win against Utah and all this sort of stuff. I think that it was really well done. And I think it, assures Oregon fans that Lanning will be here as long as we want him to be. Because if you're willing to say, I'm not interested in taking the Alabama job, I'd rather be here at Oregon, barring an opening at Georgia, I just don't think there is another job. That kind of dispels my LSU theory. If Lanning wouldn't leave Oregon for Alabama, which I believe he could have, I don't think he would leave for LSU. So that's a pretty great feeling that Oregon's got Lanning locked up financially for the next several years. He is very well compensated, and he is paid according to the standard that we hold him to as fans. And the fact that he is committed to being Oregon's head coach, that's a fantastic feeling for Duck fans, because we've been burned by it in the past, in the very recent past, it feels. And it felt like deja vu, I'm sure, for a lot of Oregon fans. But I think we all love this guy. I think we should. The way he recruits, the way he coaches. Remember, he's still a young head coach, and he's 22-5. It's hard to get a lot better than that. Chip Kelly started 22-4 over his first 2 seasons. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. 10-2. Yeah, that sounds right. So similar trajectory there. And I think Lanning is, not someone who would ever be an NFL kind of guy. I think he's a college coach, and Oregon is clearly the place that he wants to be. And that's fantastic news, because now all the questions that, I was talking about loosely on yesterday's show, some people wanted me to talk about a short list, and I said, no, I'm not doing that until there's actually an opening. Well, guess what? There's no coaching opening. If he'd left, the recruiting would have taken a hit, and transfer portal and departures and everything like that would have been thrown into chaos. Nope. Instead, the ship is it has self-corrected. It looked like it could veer off course, but it never actually did veer off course. And Oregon is going to go into 2024 under Dan Lanning as one of the top 2 or 3 favorites to win the Big Ten, with the way their roster has been built, with the amount of talent they have, the amount of talent that they have brought in. One guy who I've overlooked a little bit here on the show that I'm going to talk about a bit later on. I think that there's a lot to like about Dan Lanning right now. I think that he really likes Oregon fans. I think he likes being Oregon's head football coach. That's evident by the fact that he's still Oregon's football coach, and his name is out of the coaching circle. Just like that. Just like a Thanos snap to kill off half the universe. That hypothetically, of course, because that's a fictional world, but it really did happen quite quickly. I think there is a lesson to be learned in how everything kind of went down for Oregon fans. Have you heard about FanDuel yet? If you're an everydayer over here, I appreciate you very much, and you definitely have. But if you're new here, FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL regular season may have wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. You don't have to actually hit on the bet. Just put it down. And then 115 bonus bets comes your way. It's that simple. The app is super easy to use as well. They've got a great interface, and there are a lot of different ways to bet. You can do live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays, and do so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So this was a wild and crazy, I don't know, 16 hours. I received, we'll call it a bevy of direct messages or, messages on subtext and everything like that, asking about, hey, or YouTube comments as well. Just a good general lesson here. When these coaching searches come up, only go to reliable sources of information. In each of the 2 times that Dan Lanning has been tied to a head coaching opening in the past year, that's Alabama and Texas A&M previously, there was suddenly a tweet going around about a flight from Eugene to Tuscaloosa or to College Station. What could it be? There was actual reporting. And this is tough because Sports Illustrated is a reputable spot. They reported, or someone did over there, that Dan Lanning was in Tuscaloosa and he was never there. It was met with mockery by the Oregon players. It was a part of the tweet that Lanning sent out to let everybody know that he's staying, and that Oregon football sent out as well. It had, his geographical location in Eugene, because all this stuff flew around. And this is just what happens in today's horrible world. It's not all horrible, but this is definitely a horrible part of it. Everyone is energized around these sorts of situations. And there are people out there that are in the clickbait sort of business that are trying to capitalize on it. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I released an episode as quickly as I could because I knew that it would pick up a lot of traction because Oregon fans were going to have this on their minds. I did not, however, say things that were incorrect or tell you anything that I don't know to be true. And some people out there are willing to do that. So when, let's say in 3 years, Lanning has a great 3 years, and the current, whoever the next Bama hire is, he ends up not working out, and Lanning's name gets tied to the Alabama job again, 3 or 4 years down the road. If that happens, a word of advice to all Oregon fans everywhere: do not just scroll through Twitter and believe everything you see just because someone says something authoritatively of Dan Lanning is in Tuscaloosa right now. You go find a dozen or so comments over on YouTube. You can find tweets of, random flight trackers or everything like that. It's just not a great place to be. It's just not a great place to be because there are so many reports or indications, hints, or whatnot that are not accurate. And that report getting out there that he was in Tuscaloosa when he was not is irresponsible. Now, it's not as if this is the first time an agency has gotten a report wrong, but that's just something that Duck fans should be wary of, because I got a lot of messages about that. Hey, looks like he's in Tuscaloosa. No, he was not. He was not there. Unless there is photographic evidence of something, take it with a grain of salt. So I think that's the lesson to kind of be learned amidst all of this. But the other lesson is that Oregon is indeed as strong of a brand as we believe it to be. Because I think that it's easy to look at, Taggart going to Florida State, which was his dream job, and Cristobal going to Miami, which was his alma mater. I think it's easy to look at those and then Lanning in here and potentially being tied to Alabama and everything and think, gosh, is Oregon really just a stepping stone sort of place? Well, Dan Lanning is here to show that it's not, first of all. And second of all, I think that Oregon is a top tier job in all of college football. But for Taggart and Cristobal, they were not going to places that are inherently better jobs than Oregon. I know for a fact Miami is not a better job than Oregon. I don't know that Florida State is a better job than Oregon. They're in the same sort of class at the very least, but Miami is a step below both of them. Those guys just happen to have personal ties to those institutions. And so that, I think, is a unique circumstance. And this whole narrative about, well, is Oregon just, a building block or a stepping stone sort of spot? No, it is not. It's just not the number one job in college football like Alabama arguably could be. And it wasn't, the alma mater of the coaches that Oregon had hired. So I think Oregon is in a really good position here. I think this makes the Ducks look very good, that they're able to keep Lanning. And I think that the recruiting will stay steady and everything will stay. And it's just going to be back to business as usual. So I think we can kind of put this to bed. If you have any thoughts or questions about it, of course, you can drop them in the YouTube comments or hit me up on Twitter at smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. DMs and mentions wide open. If you have any other questions about it, happy to answer them on the show. But this has been very quickly and very decisively put to bed. Dan Lanning is Oregon's coach, period. That's it. There's no, well, what if? Nope. It's done. It is done. And that's a great thing for Duck fans. If you want priority mailbag access to, you can go join the Locked On Ducks SUBTEXT community. Link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch the show. Free 14-day trial. Then it's just $5 a month. You get all sorts of insider perks over there. You can talk with me more regularly in a 1v1 capacity. You can get all my instant reaction, thoughts, and analysis to all the news. Not a requirement, though. This show remains free and available wherever you listen to it. But since we are back to business as usual, let's do some business as usual stuff. This question came in via the mailbag, via the SUBTEXT community, priority as promised. Do you think the new upcoming college football playoff system has anything to do with so many players returning for one more year? The opportunity to be a part of a new CFP era is very special, and especially one at this caliber when, one, the path and opportunity towards a championship is much more obtuse, nice vocab word, and two, to be able to say that you were there from the beginning of a new system that will most likely be in a place for a very long time also seems special. Your thoughts? So I think players returning is multifaceted. You know, there have always been decisions that players make as to whether they go to the NFL or whether they come back to college. And the factors that go into it have always been multifaceted, right? You have financial considerations, you have NFL draft grade considerations. Some guys, you know, will kind of test the waters and see, you're a 6th round at best, maybe undrafted free agent sort of guy, and decide, I want to go improve my draft stock. I think I can be better than that. So that's always come into play. I think the factor that causes guys to come back is twofold. And this can be in any order. I think NIL and culture are the two things that cause players most to come back. For Michael Penix and Bo Nix, for instance, they came back for a 5th year of being a starting quarterback in college football. They are both very old as they go off to the NFL draft. I think they came back because they loved the cultures and the places where they were, and they wanted to go and, you know, win at the highest level that they possibly could. I also think there is a world 5 years ago, maybe pre-NIL, in which both guys would have gone to the NFL after the 2022 season because they weren't able to make significant money that's, you know, above board in college football. But with NIL, they can make a pretty good amount of money. It can be for players of that caliber who end up being Heisman finalists. It can be in the high 6 or 7 figures. It is a significant amount. You heard Matt Rule talk about this a couple of months ago, I think it was, or a few weeks ago, that the going price for a quality quarterback is $1 to $2 million. Well, if you can make that and you love college football and you love the culture you're coming back to, then that's going to incentivize players like Bo Nix and Michael Penix to return. So I think that the guys coming back for Oregon, though, I think a lot of that is culture. I think a lot of that, and that's, you know, another reason why I'm so stoked that Dan Lanning is going to come back and continue to be Oregon's head coach for the foreseeable future. Because I think that, you know, the guys playing in the bowl game and the guys returning and opting out of the NFL draft for one more year, I think that that is a testament to what the feeling is inside that locker room, and that they want to be a part of it, that they believe they can, you know, become better players and that they can win at a high level. And then it's something that they don't want to just readily, you know, be done with as their careers go on. You know, I think there's also a component to it of Trayshawn Holden and Tez Johnson are not guys that look like they'll be, you know, super high NFL draft picks. So I don't think they're big time prospects in that regard. Because, you know, Troy Franklin and I think Kyrie Jackson could have had another year, and Jackson Powers Johnson could have had one more year. But those guys are bona fide first 3 to 4 round picks. I don't know where Jackson's grade is at, but Franklin is probably a late first, early second rounder. And JPJ as a center is going to be among the first guys off the board, maybe the first guy off the board at his position. But I think it is telling that guys who, you know, played a role, however large or small, in 2024, like Trayshawn Holden and Tez Johnson, who had, you know, different size roles this past season, that they both wanted to come back. That you have guys like Johnny Cornelius who could have gone to the NFL, that he wants to come back. I think those are the factors that are in play, less so than the playoff. I don't think the playoff it's obviously a goal, but it's an attainable goal for Oregon, whether it's the 4-team playoff or they made it in the BCS or now in the 12-team. That's, going to be the expectation year in and year out. I'm not saying it didn't contribute, but I think the other things are a much, much more significant factor there. Still more mailbag questions to get to, including one about a player who I have not talked about enough on the show and who I went and watched a little film breakdown courtesy of our man, Brian Smith. You can go to whatever event you want to, courtesy of Gametime, because when you buy tickets to your next big event, you shouldn't have to worry. And Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You see the view from your seat before you arrive. They've got all-in prices, so they're not tacking on fees at the very last moment, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON. That's locked on for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So recently on this very show, I had on Max Torres of the Ducks Dish podcast. He covers Oregon for Fan Nation at Sports Illustrated. Recruiting stud. I think many of you know that by now. Everydayers know who he is. Some of you may listen to or watch his show. He does a fantastic job. We talked about the Oregon secondary at length, and there was an omission on both of our parts when talking about who could be players next year on the back end of Oregon's defense. With Kyrie Jackson and Triquez Bridges out of the rotation, you look at guys like Jalil Florence and Dante Manning and Nico Reed, and they bring in Kobe Savage at the safety position. But there was an oversight, and I'm going to explain myself in just a moment. But Sione Laulea was the number 1 junior college cornerback transfer that Oregon is bringing in the 2024 cycle. Now, why did he not pop into my mind when writing out notes for the show and thinking about who could be big players at the cornerback position for Oregon next year? Last year, offensive tackle George Silva came in for the Ducks. He was the number 1 junior college offensive tackle, and he was a second stringer. Now, that does not mean that Laulea is going to be that sort of guy, because Silva, I don't think, was quite as experienced in the football sense. I don't think he'd played all through high school. He was just a little bit more of a raw prospect there. He was one of the backup Oregon tackles this year, but only played really in garbage time. So I think that's why my mind didn't go to, and then there's the JUCO guy, because the last JUCO transfer they brought in didn't play as much. But I don't know that Laulea is going to be that sort of guy. So they brought in Cam Alexander, the cornerback from UTSA, and he is someone who I fully expect to be a major player in Oregon secondary next year. The Ducks have a lot of corners. I mean, a lot of corners, because you've got Cam Alexander to go with Dante Manning and Jalil Florence. And if Florence stays healthy, I think he's going to be an all conference caliber defensive back in 2024. But you've got Manning, and then you've got Alexander, and then you've got Nico Reed in there. But then there are a slew of young guys who could be ready to contribute at least more in their second year. Guys like Roderick Pleasant, who was a highly touted recruit, Dalen Austin as well, someone Oregon flipped from LSU once upon a time. You've got guys like Solomon Davis, you've got Colin Gill, you've got Kamari Terrell. These are all guys who are kind of going to be battling it out. Not kind of, they're going to be battling it out for playing time and, fighting for a spot on the depth chart and whatnot, because there are a lot of options for Oregon at the cornerback position. Now, maybe what'll happen is 1 or 2 of those guys switch to playing safety, or they play a lot of that nickel spot, which is, a safety, but someone who you could have as a corner. Jalil Florence played some nickel, or was in as a part of the nickel package somewhat in 2022. I remember in that Arizona game, for instance, when they had those 3 great receivers, you had Singer, you had Tetero McMillan, and Jacob Cowing. There were a lot of plays in that game I remember watching where, Oregon had on the field all three of Christian Gonzalez and Triquez Bridges and Jaleel Florence or Dante Manning as another one. So I think that for the Ducks, there are a lot of options as to what to do here because the number of bodies that they have at the safety position is not as plentiful as what they have at corner. Now, maybe they're just expecting guys who, aren't as high on the depth chart to maybe transfer out in spring football, depending on where they fall. I don't really know, but I know there are a lot of names there. But Laulea is a guy who gives me Kyrie Jackson vibes. So Kyrie Jackson, before he was at Alabama, was also a junior college transfer. He went to Bama, didn't play as much, didn't work out. He comes to Oregon, and he has a great season. That's the first factor as to why I look at Laulea and start to think more of Kyrie Jackson. But then I watched a video from our Locked On Recruiting Insider here at the network, Brian Smith, with a 3-minute breakdown that's available on YouTube of Sione Laulea, and he is 6'3". Kyrie Jackson was also 6'3". Jackson has great physicality at the cornerback position. Sometimes that, led to penalties early in the year, but he cleaned that up as the season went on. And so when I look at Laulea and, see what Brian said about him, and he's really high on his ability to flip his hips and, stay in the hip pocket of a wide receiver and run with guys, I think about Kyrie Jackson and whether or not they don't look at him physically and say, that's a guy who comes in and is going to be, kind of the new Kyrie Jackson, which was most often, I think he was the boundary corner for the Ducks to the short side of the field, used the sideline very well, and had a really, really great season for Oregon. So I wonder if that's what they're seeing. And it was just something that, I've been meaning to get back to on the show. There were a couple other things to get to between now and then, but I think that's definitely a name to know in the secondary. And as we know, whether it's, transfers or injuries, you can never have too many good players at any position group, especially in a passing world. Now, Oregon's going to a conference where there aren't, aside from Washington, I don't know who's going to be a great USC, I guess, will be a really good passing offense, but Ohio State, for those 3 games, you want to have as many bodies available as possible. That's everything on that. But let me know what you think in the comments. This question came in from King Sabo 7. Mailbag question. Very intrigued about this running back room. Who do you think becomes the guy, James or Whittington? And how fast do you think Jay Harris will get on the field, and how will they use him? Good couple of questions there. I think for Jordan James, he looked in the Fiesta Bowl like a guy who could be RB1 next season. Noah Whittington has also been a guy that we know can be RB1. I mean, there were stretches where he'd have the hot hand over Bucky Irving, who had an outstanding 2 seasons with Oregon. And their different styles played differently, and you just don't know when you want to go to this guy or that guy. I think Oregon's running back room is absolutely stacked. I mean, you're going Noah Whittington and Jordan James, and then you have Jaden Lamar, who looks real solid, and then some. Jay Harris is, physically very similar to Dante Dowdell, who transferred out. And then you have Dejon Riggs coming in as a running back in the 2024 cycle. So I think the depth is really good. The reason I don't have an immediate answer as I think about this to, who's RB1 next year. I mean, James was so good, but I don't want that to overshadow how good Noah Whittington was. Noah Whittington is also a very good running back, and I think, has more lateral movement. James is a little bit more downhill. I think James has got a little bit more physicality to his game, but both guys are really good. And I think it's good to have 2 backs that have different styles because, against a certain defense or in a certain game, one guy might be working better than the others. The thing that I continue to struggle to get over is, like, how healthy is Whittington going to be? He's coming off of, a rather significant knee injury. If he's back to being the same guy, I could see him being RB1. If he's back to being the same guy, I could see him being the backup to Jordan James. But frankly, I don't think it matters. I do not think it matters. Oregon's going to be able to run the football because they're going to have another good offensive line with all the guys that are coming back. And I think you've got talented running backs and you've got plenty of depth there. So I think it could go either way. I really do. And it'll be something to watch, maybe throughout spring football and see how Whittington comes back from that injury. If he does during spring football, I don't know what his timeline is, but I think that Jordan James and Noah Whittington and Jane Lamar, if those are your top three, you're going to be able to run the football. Last one here from Wade. Spencer, with Oregon moving to the Big Ten, what are your thoughts with respect to expanding Autzen? In your opinion, is it necessary or is it a question you are even interested in? Just curious. Thanks. Love the show. I don't think so, no, because you're going to the Big Ten where they have a lot of stadiums that are bigger than Autzen. I don't think they have a lot of stadiums that are louder than Autzen or as unique or as wonderful as Autzen. And I don't know that, like some of these states just have more people than the Ducks do in the state of Oregon, which is not a densely populated state exactly. I think it's over 4 million now or so, but I think Autzen is perfect as it is. And I hope I'm able to get back there this year because it's been far too long, but I don't think Autzen needs to change because I think expanding it, you can have more Duck fans in there, but you could also have more fans of the other team, and then a greater opportunity for them to show up. And we know that Big Ten fans are, ardent supporters of their team, which is great. I love good, passionate fan bases, and they tend to travel very well. But I feel like that's kind of what it would lean towards, is if you open it up, you're just creating more room for, Ohio State or Michigan fans to come in. So, yeah, I think Autzen is perfect as is. No need to fix what isn't broke. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and go Ducks.